Welcome to the Think Global Conference 2021. I'm Yannick Lefang, founder of Cassie Insight, Africa's premier data intelligence platform. We give market research the speed, agility, scale to help your company uncover real opportunities in Africa before your competition. Today's presentation is about understanding the African marketplace. Today, we will try to understand the gap between the African growth story, the reality on the ground, and what it really takes to win in Africa. Of course, data is going to be a big part of the conversation. Let's begin by looking at what's driving Africa's growth story. Africa's population is close to China, with over a billion people, but it's younger, growing faster. Its population is also urbanizing, and more people are increasing their income. In fact, the consumer and business opportunity will be among the fastest growing over the next 5 years compared to globally, with GDP expected to grow even faster. One of the main drivers of Africa growth is increased digitization, fueled by mobile and internet penetration. But we have heard this before. In fact, in the 1990s, Africa was supposed to emerge and take over Asia. Fast forward 2021, the growth has been there, but the climb to the top is still steep. It almost feels like Africa is full of unrealized opportunities despite the progress. And for those who think Africa is too remote for trade and business, well, the continent is more open than it seems. There are multiple travel routes going to and from the continent. You can take a direct flight from Toronto to Addis Ababa in Ethiopia, and from there reach over 20 destinations across the continent. Moreover, most Africans speak French or English, in addition to Spanish or even Portuguese. Even a country like Canada has expanded its business ties with the continent in areas such as mining and technology. So really, Africa is not a world apart. So what's hindering the climb to the top? Despite great macroeconomic outlook, the continent is still struggling to reach its full potential. There are several reasons for that. There's more work to do when it comes to governance, corruption, and Africa as a whole performs poorly in some of these global benchmarks, like the Mo Ibrahim Governance Index or even the Transparency International Corruption Perception Index. More revealing is the share of Africa in the global trade. It's very minimal compared to, let's say, Asia. Lastly, when we look at innovation, we can see again that there is a gap between Africa and Asia, which is significant. The continent's innovations are not making to the global stage, and there's more work to do when it comes to even owning these innovations. It's not all gloom and doom. There are companies that have found tremendous success in Africa, but they follow very specific frameworks and they have very specific persona. One thing is for sure, they don't guess, they don't assume, they think and strategize differently. They value local context and insight. Unfortunately, for the majority of international companies that are looking to trade and do business in Africa, they often fail to understand the local context, dig deeper than the macro, innovate from within as opposed to copying and pasting. And so these failures are one of the reasons why the continent has not reached its full potential. And we have seen lately examples of well-funded companies that still didn't make it or are struggling in Africa. So we have looked at some of the reasons why the African growth story has not reached its peak. There are, however, a few macro trends that could change the trajectory of the continent this time around. The first one is the Continental Free Trade Agreement. For the first time, Africa is open for business with Africa. The trade zone went live in 2020 in the middle of the pandemic, and when it's fully open and implemented, it will be the largest free trade zone in the world by the number of countries involved, 55. Its potential for creating growth and prosperity is immense. If implemented properly, Africa will produce more, consume more, innovate more, and trade more. The second trend is COVID-19. Africa has been the continent less impacted by the pandemic when it comes to the number of cases and number of deaths. In fact, for the first time since we track consumer confidence in Africa and the US, both benchmarks converged in 2020. The global nature of the pandemic makes it a godsend reset for the continent and the world. Supply chains are being disrupted, local production is on the rise. Africans now understand the value of digitization and will accelerate the infrastructure rollout, much needed. Lastly, innovation is happening in Africa, with more startups, more funding coming into the continent. That wealth creation will create a virtuous cycle that should see the continent take more ownership of its innovation, more share of the global trade. These emerging macro trends, free trade, COVID-19, innovation, will impact all industries: consumer goods, banking, healthcare, and technology. The opportunity to trade with Africa will increase significantly, and technology will play a significant role. According to research by a global consulting firm, the number of $1 billion companies in Africa will increase by 50% over the next 4 years. This is amongst the fastest growing of $1 billion company in the world, and will definitely place the continent on the right path to reach the top. Larger companies tend to employ more people, pay more taxes, fuel entire ecosystem. Creating more billion-dollar company is in Africa is the only way to reach the peak. Now, let's look at the consumer market in Africa. It is estimated to reach 2.6 trillion potentially. And obviously, consumer data is at the heart of your business. And for companies looking to export, import, or trade with the continent, getting the right data to make decisions is critical. Failure to get that information timely and accurately will mean that your business will repeat the same mistakes that other business did in the past. Assume a market and a need, confront with solutions not suited for the market, and push offerings with no context and value add. Africans are changing and evolving fast, so effective research is important. We often hear that data is the new oil. It is true even in the context of the continent. Companies that are successful in Africa are data-driven. They don't see Africa as a country, but a combination of various distinct markets. They unlock the value of data to solve the right problem. In doing that, they're able to build relevant and valuable products and services. Data impacts every part of their businesses, and they embrace a customer-centric approach in Africa. Finally, they leverage top-down and bottom-up data to grow their market share and revenue. At Cassie, we help companies make data-driven decisions fast. We speak to thousands of African consumers every month to understand what's driving their daily life, purchase decisions, sentiment, and attitudes. We then turn that survey-based data into new data sets that would complement macro data to give you and your business a more holistic view of the markets you're looking to invest or trade in with. Our data solutions include economic indicators, consumer trackers, retail indices, and brand trackers. We truly believe that combining macro-level data With consumer level data would unlock real opportunities for your businesses in Africa. We have seen this already happening with our clients. They can test products with real customers before the launch. They can establish persona profile at the click of a button, and they can even unlock brand new opportunities just by analyzing our data. Now we're going to go through one case. As you know, GDP, which is gross domestic product, is one of the main data points used by companies to assess performance and strength of an economy or a market. It is widely used and understood, but in Africa, statistical offices are not able to produce GDP estimate on a monthly basis. In fact, the best countries in Africa produce GDP quarterly, South Africa as an example. Now, looking at the impact of COVID-19 in Kenya, several sources estimate a drop of GDP rate of 5%, but at least the last actual reading of GDP is actually from 2019, which was a 5.4% year-over-year growth. Now, looking at the CASI Consumer Confidence Index, a monthly tracker of consumer sentiment, we see that from January to December 2020, the index went from +4 to 0, which is a 4% drop or 4-point drop year over year. However, the reality is that the impact of COVID and the pandemic was felt monthly with significant drop in March. The monthly reading is showing a more accurate picture of the impact of the pandemic in the country. For businesses, using GDP or just year-over-year information will miss a significant insight into the pandemic. This is an illustration of why top-down and bottom-up data is so critical in understanding the African marketplace. Another example is using trended data to unlock opportunities even during the pandemic. Our retail category tracker on the right shows the demand for financial products during the pandemic in Nigeria. You can see that the demand shifted considerably during the pandemic, with consumer first saving, borrowing on the onset of the pandemic, moving away from branches and day-to-day banking. 10 months later, demand had shifted significantly, with insurance products showing the largest jump. Now, in a country like Nigeria, with over 100 million adults, a jump of 20% in demand for insurance product is a significant opportunities for insurance and insurtech. It represents potentially millions of new customers for these companies. So when you think about the insurance penetration in Nigeria as being one of the lowest in the world at 1%, this is definitely a huge shift to watch and opportunities in what is the largest market in Africa. I hope I was able to demonstrate the power of CASI data to unlock opportunities for your business and the markets you're looking to trade in on the continent. The African continent is a sleeping giant full of untapped potential and resources. A majority of the economies of the continent have been growing exponentially over the past years, to the point where the largest economy in the world have been eyeing the continent as a reservoir for business opportunities, and aside from its limitation. However, unclear of the size of the consumer market and other indicators due to lack of information and insight have kept some foreign investors at bay. This is where we come in. We help businesses on the continent, in the continent, and externally understand the African people audience and in turn the African market so that they'll be able to capture the opportunities and be successful. Africa is definitely the next growth market, and with the right insight, business can equip themselves with the tools and strategies to move forward. Thank you for joining us, and I'm happy to answer your questions.